Welcome back to the channel if you've been here before, and welcome to the channel if you're new here. So today's video I'm going to branch out a little bit and look at something a little bit different, but also the same as what I've previously done on the channel here. Today is going to be a portable power station. It's a micro power station or a massive power bank, if you want to call it that. So today we're going to be looking at the Egretech portable power station. This is their plume 300 watt. Let's do a walk around on the box. It says it has 100 watt USB-C input and output. It says it's lightweight and slim. We'll look at the size and weight. There's a 300 watt pure sine wave AC output. There are two USB-Cs, two USB-As, and two 5521 DC barrel jack ports. Supports fast charging outdoors with a solar panel, and I will also try to see if we can use dual charging with a AC adapter from an AC input source, along with another DC input as well. So different features. It says some pretty basic things about it. If you want to look at that, it's supposed to have a battery capacity of 260 watt hours, and we are going to see how much of that 260 watt hour capacity is actually usable. So we're going to check the usable capacity and see how much what are the losses. This one here is the 110 style of US AC power plug. There's a different style for this type of connector. If you are in a place that uses this type of connector. I picked this up on Amazon. This is not a paid review. Nobody sent me this. I wanted something that was super lightweight, small, compact, has a good sized battery to run a laptop. This could be a laptop power bank, or a massive power bank if you want to use it just for your smartphone, right? I've never opened this up. I am seeing this for the first time. So let's get right into it. I can tell you right off the bat, this thing for a power bank, that's massive. This is more like massive power bank or micro power station, because it does have the AC output. Size and weight of this thing, we are looking at something that is about the size of your cable modem or your Wi-Fi router. See what else is in the other boxes. This is the leather carry strap. This here is the instructions. Talks about some of the specs and details. This is the first time I'm opening this, so I am seeing it for the first time as well. This box is sealed. Let's see what's in here. I'm guessing it's probably the AC charger. Now, this Plume 300, it does have the option as a kit to come with a 100 watt solar panel. I did not buy that solar panel. I just wanted the power station or the power bank. You could get it separately. You could also get it bundled together. I figured for my use case, if this thing does well, passes all my tests, I am going to keep it and use it in conjunction with another portable power station, or in conjunction with another battery backup system. If you've seen some of the previous videos I have on the channel, I've installed a grid down system that will automatically switch over in the event that my utility power is disconnected from whatever reason, storm damage, equipment maintenance, and of course I recharge with a gas generator. Enough with that. What's in the box? Cigarette lighter that goes to DC barrel jack. This is a 5521 barrel jack. This one here is another USB-C cable. This one here is AC charge cord, the carry strap, and of course this should be the AC power adapter. Power brick, 20 volt output, 3.2 amps, 64 watt. Alright, let's have a look at the power bank, because that's what you're really here to see. This is about the size of a cable modem or a Wi-Fi router. Let's do a walk around on this thing first. It's got your Egretech logo. On this side, you have a fan. This could be the air intake fan or the exhaust. This is a LED light bar. Probably has different light modes. We'll try those later on. 2 fans. Information about this. There's 4 rubberized foot pads to stop it from sliding, because this is hard plastic, and the table is also hard plastic, so it's super slippery, and stop it from slipping off the table. The AC output, there's another fan grill mesh here. Power button, AC on off button, display here. It's very nice to see. On such a small unit, you get a display. The 2 USB A's, they are both rated for 22, it says 22.5 watts each. USB-C bidirectional port, 100 watts in or out. This one's another USB-C out only at 20 watts. And then, of course, these 2 DC barrel jacks. The bottom one's output, 36 watts. And the top one is a input, 100 watts. Over here, you got the 2 metal loops to attach your leather strap, shoulder strap, carry case, carry strap, whatever it is. Of course, on this side it is flat. And that's basically our walk around. So we're going to check the weight of this thing. Set it down. 2.18 kilograms. How big is this thing? This way across 24 centimeters, 9.5 inches. 17 centimeters, 6 3/4. Exactly 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So that is about the size of a cable modem or a Wi-Fi router, and weighs under 5 pounds. Alright, so I first want to start with having a look at the input and output functions and see if we can do pass-through charging, UPS mode, see if it has something like that, because nothing in the manual says anything about simultaneous dual charging. Turn this on, press the power button. No way, is this thing dead? Is it dead out of the box already? Maybe it has no charge. What's going on? No way. Okay. There's only 2 buttons on this side, and the other side is just the LED light. The battery doesn't come with charge on it, maybe. Hopefully that's what it is. You know, if this thing doesn't charge and it's dead out of the box, wow, that would be insane. Oh, it turns on. There is a red-green LED indicator. Finally. So this thing was completely no charge, dead battery out of the box. We're inputting 56 watts, and it says 5 hours until it's full. Let's see if we can run dual charging. Okay, so now we're going to try dual charging with 2 65-watt inputs. Both of these are basically power adapters. One is the included 65-watt wall adapter. Another one is a Anker USB-C charger. I've got this power strip on the watt-hour power meter, so we can see wattage that's being drawn. It is not doing it. Wattage on the AC side is drawing 60, and we're getting 56 watts going into the battery. Okay, so that's definitely not dual AC charging. Let's see if I unplug the included wall adapter, the power jumps up. It's not charging at all. Oh, now it is. So it has to do with some, the circuitry, the charge controller circuitry has to recalculate. I am using the correct USB-C port. This is the bidirectional port. The bottom one is a 20-watt output only. Let's try a different port on my USB-C charger. Alright, so I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to bring this thing upstairs and try the cigarette lighter charging. Okay, so I'm upstairs again. The Egretech Plume 300 portable power bank, power station. The DC input for 100 watts. Let's try it. The output on this cigarette lighter port up here is 12 volt, 10 amps. Let's see if it starts charging. It might take a moment. 28 watts. 41 watts. Let's see if it goes up to 100 watts. It's stuck at 41 watts of input from the cigarette lighter. You see output, the difference between the top number and the bottom number. The wattage difference is basically going to this micro power station. Useful. Try it again. Okay, it's going up. Will it go past 50 watts? Or is it just capped? For some reason, it's not going higher. This barrel jack input is supposed to be up to 100, but it's only doing 50. It will say a full recharge in 6 hours, indicated by the 06 number right there on the top right. We'll unplug this and see if we can get a 100 watt input charge to this thing. Will this be 100 watts? Right away it jumps up to 47, 70 watts, 83, 95, and the wattage difference between these two numbers is basically 100 right now, and that's indicated by the 98 watts of input. Time to full is 3 hours, and let's see if we can do dual charging. I'm gonna plug the cigarette lighter barrel jack back in. Let's see if we can get more than 100 watts of input. No, it stops it. It stops right away. You cannot use the USB-C bidirectional 100 watt port for charging if you have your DC input. So let's unplug it. Let's see if it will reset. Yes, it does. It will recalculate, and then it starts charging again from USB-C. So you see 140 over 240. As soon as you plug this in, it stops. So you cannot use both of these ports as inputs together. Instead of the cigarette lighter, we'll use the wall adapter. See if that makes any difference. I don't think so, but it's worth a try. I'm gonna connect this. Nope. This Egretech plume does not have dual charging, unfortunately. I'm a bit disappointed. This thing doesn't have a dual charging option. 100 watt input charging isn't terrible. It's 3 hours. If you think 3 hours is too long, that's fine too. Let's have a look at the LED light. Okay, so that's low brightness, medium, high, a slow flashing, faster flashing, and then you got the SOS mode. Turn it off. I think it's press and hold. Yeah. So that's the LED light function. Okay, the next I want to try is USB-C recharging from a dead battery. Let's see how long it takes. Another phone here we're going to use as the timer, and we're going to plug this in. It switches on right away. Start the clock. Right away the fan kicks on. So as soon as we start charging, within a matter of 10 seconds, the USB-C charging fan will turn itself on right away. (51% state of charge at 1 hour 21 minutes. Okay, we are 2 hours 40 minutes into the charge rate test. 99% state of charge. I'm gonna let this continue for a little bit more and see how long it actually takes to get to 100%. So this is basically the final trickle charge for the final 1%. And stop. Okay. So if you just saw that, 100% state of charge, and the wattage in is completely down to 0. I stopped the clock at 3 hours, 19 minutes, 38 seconds. Okay, so just call that 3 hours, 20 minutes. Now, that was to get from 99% to 100%. That means that last 1%, that slow trickle charge, went from 2 hours, 45 minutes to 3 hours, 20 minutes. So that basically is another 35 minutes to get the final last 1% from 99 to 100. So by the strictest definition of what is a full charge, a full top up of the battery, it would take 3 hours, 20 minutes. If you want to get to if you want to get close to that, 99%, 2 hours, 45 minutes. Okay, since we're at a full charge, I want to see what happens if I unplug the USB-C connector, and then we'll plug it back in and see if it tries to charge again. USB output. Let's see what it does. It will trickle charge again at 10 watts. So that pretty much guarantees that it is 100% completely done. Alright, so I just finished charging this thing. When I took this out of the box, I thought this thing was completely dead. Like, it says to charge it when you first get it. This did not come with a charge. I didn't know that at first. Charge speed test later on down in the video when we get to that. We are going to start with the DC load test. So we're going to do some of the DC outputs, and then we'll try the AC inverter for AC loads, and we'll do a combination of different loads. So pressing the AC on, you will see the little AC power plug. Clicking it again, it turns it off. So that's on, that's off. Of course, this is the on-off button. That tiny little display is really hard to show on camera. I'll try to do my best. Okay, so I'll just read you the numbers off what I see on the display here. We are doing the DC barrel jack port. That's supposed to be, a 20 watt output. Correction, this is actually 36. So that means it's 12 volt, 3 amps. Okay, we're right at 1 amp. The voltage comes down to 11.8. So open circuit voltage is starting at 12.1. This is now 12 watts. 12 watts on the display. It's 1.5 amps, 11.7 volts, 18 watts. We're showing 17 on the display. It's coming up 2 amps, 24 watts, and it's showing 24 on the screen there. We're running 3 amps, voltage 11.6, 35 watts of load, and over here also showing 35 watts. I'll let this run for 5 minutes if it decides to shut down. If it doesn't shut down for 5 minutes, push the wattage higher over 36 watts, and we will see if there's overload protection. If it does allow for a little bit of overload, how much? Okay, I'm gonna do that for every single output port I can. Alright, looks like it passed the full 5-minute load test at the designed of 36 watts. Alright, so now let's break it. 3.2 amps, 37 watts. We're now 3.6 amps, 41 watts. You can see 42 on the screen there. Oh, it cut out. Looks like it's around 40 is the hard limit. After 40 watts, it will self-protect and cut power, which is good. So it prevents people like me from damaging it. 40 to 42 watts. 3.7 amps, 11.2 volts. We're going to try the bottom USB port. That is 20 watts. So no charging with this port. So right at 1 amp, it's down to 11.9 volts from 12.1. It is 12 watts of load. It's showing 11 on the display. 1.7 amps, 11.8 volts. Showing 20 watts on the screen. We'll start timer. Let this run for another 5 minutes. Alright, we got the full 5 minutes. Now we're going to overload it. 2 amps. Nope, it cuts out. It's dropping the voltage too much. Almost 1.9 amps. 22.5 watts. 2 amps. 10 volts. Okay, so starting at a full 2 amps at 10.2 volts, the voltage is dropping out of spec. The wattage is still, again, down to 20. So very little headroom. If you keep it at 1.98 amps, it'll stay at 11.9 volts. 23 watts. So we are now doing the bidirectional USB-C port. At 1 amp, it's 19.8 volts, 20 watts. 2 amps, 19.6 volts, 40 watts. 4 amps, 19.3 volts, 78 watts. Showing 77 on the display there. The power station fan kicked on. A full 5 amps, it is 19.2 volts, 96 watts. I'm doing 96 watts out. But let's see if we can get the full 100. At a full 100.4 watts, 5.23 amps, 19.2 volts. Now the inverter fan is really kicked on. Okay, so there's air coming out back here, and there's also some air coming out back here. Most of it is this one. So it must be drawing air from this side, and then it comes out on the opposite backside where the light bar sits. Not too loud, but you know, you do hear it. Check temperature, 26 Celsius, 28 on this side, 26 on this side. 28 down here on the USB A's. Over on the display, it is about 25. So this whole area around the USB A's and the USB-C ports, it does warm up. That's the whole area where it's getting hot. Alright, we got the full 5 minutes. 5.5, 106 watts. 5.7, 110. 6 amps, 114 watts. 19 volts still. Oh, cut power. Looks like it's 6 amps at exactly 19 volts. Can we do more? Let's find out. 6.1, 116 watts. It allows for another. Let's go over to the USB A's and we'll do the same. Alright, so I've got a different load tester for the USB A ports. I'll start with the top port. Just start turning it up real quick. It is doing 5.28 volts, 3 amps, 16.3 watts. Over here on the display, it is showing 17 watts, 3.2 amps, 17 watts. Right. So it looks like my load tester is not able to overload or load the USB-A outputs to the max 22.5 watts. What I'm going to try now is going back to the other load tester that we used just before, and we're going to use a micro USB cable that goes to USB-A. We're going to try doing the load test. Let's see if this works with the 5 volt DC output wattage on the top USB-A port. At 1 amp, 4.87 volts, 5 watts. 3 amps, 4.4 volts, 13.5 watts. It seems like there's a problem with voltage. It's possible it's the USB cable right here. This cable is probably not designed to handle 3 amps of current, so we're seeing that huge voltage drop, because with this load tester that you saw me use just before, this was doing, it was 17 watts, 3.2 amps at 5 plus volts, and there wasn't a problem with voltage sag because this connector goes straight into the USB-A port. With this cable though, there's a limit to how much current it can carry. This is 14 watts and we're seeing a lower voltage than with this at 17 watts. We'll try the same with the bottom USB-A port. It's likely to be the same. Same thing with the bottom port. So USB-C connector. And of course the other end is a USB-A. That's even worse now. You see the voltage isn't stable even at 3 amps. We're doing 12 watts. Micro B cable, it was 4.78 volts, right? This cable is even worse. I still got one more cable, so we'll try it again. Once again, the same problem. 4.2 volts at the 3 amps, that is 12 watts. It's likely you're going to run into this problem because most USB-A ports, this older connector type, they're not rated for such a high output wattage. I know there are other types of USB load testers that can handle more current and more wattage, but I don't have that right now, and I want to finish this as quick as I can. The bottom port, again, same thing. We're showing 17 watts, 3.2 amps, 5.21 volts, 16.9 watts. I apologize that I am not able to break this USB-A port because I don't have the proper equipment to do it. So we are done with the DC output ports. Now let's go over to the AC output. We're going to load test the AC inverter. I've got a variety of different appliances, motors, inductive loads, heaters, resistive loads. Most of these are going to be under 300 watts. Some are 50 watts. And we're going to see if we can run a combination of the various different things here. So I'm going to show you what I have. This convection oven, I'm going to use this on the lowest setting. It's going to be 200 watt load. This upright vacuum, 250 watt load. This food chopper, food processor, 2 different speed settings, a low and a high. The high speed load is around 70 watts. Floor fan, 50 watt motor. And last but not least, a 2-speed air duster. The full power high speed setting is 500 watts. Lower speed setting is around 320 watts. So we'll finish up with this one and see if we can run this motor. This is what I'm very curious about. So let's start with the small stuff. The scope reads 113.6 volts. We're going to look at the sine wave first. Alright, so there it is. There's the pure sine wave with the inverter idling. It is doing 112 volts. Let's zoom in a little bit more and we'll start the first appliance, and we will see if the waveform changes. There is a bit of a ripple just right there. Let's start with the food processor on the low speed setting. You can see the wattage on the output of the display here, 48 watts, low speed. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, that was easy. Too easy. We're going to try that floor fan set on the highest speed, of course. It works. There's the sine wave, 46 watts. Up next, let's try our upright vacuum cleaner over here. So doing the Bissell upright vacuum cleaner. This motor has a running wattage of 250 watts, but there is a little bit of a surge. So what that means is for a split second when the motor starts up, the start wattage is a little bit higher. The start wattage, it will spike up to 300 watts. Yes, it does. It's running it. This Bissell motor right here. The inverter fan just kicked on with a 250 watt load. Switch on the motor. You can see the screen here actually flickered a little bit. So 220 watts, 228 on the screen here. If you watch the blue backlight on the power meter flicker when I switch on the motor. Watch. It changes the AC sine wave a little bit. So it's able to do this motor without any problem. And it's running 220 watts. Very nice. Next we're going to do this toaster oven. Use the warm setting. So right there, the inverter kicks on. It is showing 200 watts and I'm measuring 197. Scan the waveform. Little bit of a waveform distortion. It is still maintaining 59.9 hertz. If I unplug the heater, the fan shuts off pretty quick. Last final load is the big one. This is a electric air duster. We'll start with the low speed first and see if it can do it. I would be really amazed if it can handle this particular motor load. This is huge. I don't think it's going to do it. I want it to, but it's most likely not going to happen. Will it do it on the low speed setting? You ready? No. It could not do it. It tried. It really did. You hear the motor trying to start. E09. I believe that's error. And of course you'll see the AC power plug is blinking with a exclamation point. Let's give it another go on the low speed setting. No. Couldn't do it. Being able to start a motor like this is effectively like a high wattage blender, you know, like a 700 watt blender motor, but on the low speed setting, because a lot of blenders have like a high speed, a medium, and a low. There's also like pulse as well. Starting this motor in this air duster is like low wattage for a 700 watt blender motor, so it's no surprise that it could not do it. One last time again, but with the higher speed full power setting. That was close. It really tried, but it couldn't do it. Wow. If I were to actually run this motor off a wall outlet. Alright, so this is the reason why the power station could not start this electric air duster motor. So I'll show you the running wattage on the low speed setting. I have this connected directly to a wall outlet through a extension cord. 320 watts. You saw for a moment there it spiked up to 522 watts and then it went down to 320. That 520 is the inrush, the surge wattage. So that's why it was overloading the inverter in this power station. On the high speed setting, this motor is almost 500 watts. 489. Floor fan and food processor. Okay. The floor fan is on. I'm going to plug in the food processor. Try the low speed. Look at the wattage on the bottom left. So a combination of two different loads. 50 watt, well, 46 watt fan motor and a low speed food processor. The inverter fans have not kicked on. So let's try the high speed. Jumps up to 117. The inverter fans have switched on. So as soon as I went with the high speed setting on the food processor with the floor fan, the inverter fans kicked on. I'm going to put something in the food processor just to add more load to the motor. I don't think it'll make a difference. Okay, so I filled it all the way up to the top. Low speed first. No problem. let's try 200 watts from the convection oven, and then we're gonna add another 100 with the food processor on the high setting. So for a total of 300. I'm gonna start this with a 200 watt load. Of course, the fans start. Charge is at 91%, 196 watts on top of the 194. 250 watts, no problem. Speed, 300. Whoa, something happened. I think the motor in the food processor must have overheated. I smell the brushes. There's like this burning electrical smell from the carbon brushes in the motor. We're gonna do an overload test on the inverter now. Upright vacuum, 250 watts. And we're gonna start the upright vacuum first. Will this work? Let's see. Yes, it will. Now we're gonna try the high speed setting. 326 watts, 340. That was a total of 320 watts. Now we're gonna add the floor fan, 46 watts. Now we're gonna do the inrush surge as well from the vacuum. 265. Having the floor fan on and then switching on the upright vacuum, it settles down at 260, okay? Food processor, low speed, 134 watts. Let's try the food processor on high speed, 370 watts. I'm going to reset the clock on the power meter because I want to see how long the inverter can sustain a over 300 watt load. We're going to use a combination of upright vacuum, food processor on high speed, and the floor fan for a total of around 345 watts. The floor fan first. That time right there is in seconds, so as soon as the fan started, the clock will start automatically. Now I'm going to add the upright vacuum. 370 watts. Have you noticed what happened? When I had the food processor on the high running, this motor running on the high speed setting, switching on the upright vacuum, as the upright vacuum motor starts, it draws power and the inverter will reduce the speed to this motor in the food processor, and eventually the speed will balance out. But if I switch off the vacuum motor, the food processor motor will go back to its full speed. You can actually see the wattage there. It goes up to a peak of around 370. So let's try that again. Convection oven is on, 200 watts of load. I will turn on the floor fan for another 46 watts, so that will bring it to around 240. Next, we're going to add the food processor motor. Okay, and we're going to overload test as well. So I'll start with low speed on food processor. 295 watts. No problem. High speed on the food processor. 340 watts peak. Okay, last item we are going to now add, vacuum cleaner. So we got 4 appliances. Will this overload the inverter? Whoa, no way! It did it! 438 watts! Toaster oven and the floor fan is a total of 244 watts. Upright vacuum. It's 437 watts. This is way more than what the inverter was designed, rated for, but it is doing it. It's a very strong inverter. I'll surge it a few more times. You can see the screen on there showing 472. Oh, we had an overload. We had an overload. Finally. And it says EO6. So I'm guessing that EO6 means it is a overcurrent event. 45 watt floor fan, 200 watt convection oven, and a 220 watt vacuum cleaner for a total of around 460 watts. 440 watts, 457, still sine wave, 59.9 hertz. Watch the time right here. 8 minutes on the clock. Oh, just on about 45 seconds. Okay. Wow. So, when I started that overload test, the time on the the time on the power meter was 7 minutes 14 seconds. It then shut off right exactly on the dot, 8 minutes. So that went for about 45 seconds of overload at 440 watts. We'll start this at 8:10. 438 watts. Let's check voltage. 107. Wow. 437, 39. 842. So that was 30 seconds. So it started at 8 minutes 10 seconds. It shut off at 8 minutes 42 seconds. So you can get about a 30 second to 45 second overload at around 440 watts out of this 300 watt rated inverter. That is a serious overhead. I mean, that's impressive. You know, if this is designed for 300 watts of continuous load long term without overheating, you know, it can handle up to 440 watts for about 30 to 45 seconds of overload. That is a pretty darn good inverter. I did see the voltage drop down to 107. What I'm going to do now is, when this clock shows 9 minutes, so 9:00, we're going to start the vacuum cleaner. Now we're going to add the food processor. 450 watts. Floor fan, convection oven, vacuum cleaner, and then food processor on the low setting. The wattage jumped up to about 480, and within about 5 seconds, the inverter shut down. So around 440 watts of overload, 30 to 45 seconds. At 480 watts, it was within 5 seconds. It shut down. So let's give that another try. Fan on, oven is on. We're gonna wait until 25 to switch on vacuum. 480 watts, 472. Just a matter of seconds. Around 480 watts, under 5 seconds. I want to check the voltage at the 480 watt overload. We'll wait for the inverter to reset. Voltage is 107. Okay. We're gonna add vacuum cleaner, see what the voltage comes down to. It drops down to 91 volts, but then the wattage is, and it stabilizes at 107. Wattage is 459. Let's do the food processor. About 5 seconds. That's extreme of overload. Okay, last final thing we're gonna do for the AC overload test before we wrap up this part of the video. So we still have to try high speed on the food processor with everything else on as well. So we're gonna start that with the time on 11. Vacuum on. Let's go high speed on the food processor. We saw 505. 505 watts on the power meter, but right before shutdown. And that's coming out of a 300 watt rated inverter. On 11:20, I'm going to turn on the vacuum and then go straight to the food processor. 440 watts. Chuck wattage. 500. Up to 500 watts. 3 to 5 seconds. Again, yeah. 243. 440. 4 to 5 seconds at 500 watts. Inverter fan is on, and we're gonna do the vacuum cleaner. 17, 400. 49. So about 30 seconds at 400 watts. 55. 35 seconds. Okay. 40 seconds. Yeah. That wraps up and concludes the AC overload testing. This little inverter in this micro power station, this thing did surprisingly well. It's got a really strong inverter with lots of overhead. Battery capacity test. I'm going to start with the AC loads. I will be looking at the usable capacity 260 watt hour battery, 0.26 kilowatt hours, and I will measure the power, of course, with the watt hour power meter right here. 100% state of charge. The loads I have are going to be a 60 watt light bulb, floor fan, convection oven on the lowest setting, so 200 watts here. This is about 45 watts, and this is 60 watts. So that will put us right at 300. 60 watt light bulb, it's doing 53. We're going to start the floor fan, 100. And let's start convection oven. There we go, 293 watts. Alright. And the time clock here starts immediately, right away. So we'll let this run. Should be pretty quick because 300 watts of load on a 260 watt hour battery is not going to give you a full 1 hour of runtime. We're immediately, right away, state of charge, we're down to 94. That's after only a minute, 40 seconds. At these wattages, the fan on the inverter is running at full speed. It's not very loud. You're not going to be able to hear it because the noise from the floor fan is already louder than the fan on the inverter for this power station. So, as far as noise for the inverter fans, it is basically like a gaming laptop doing some video editing where the fans are at full speed. You do hear it in a room that is absolute silence, but if there's any kind of other ambient noise, you won't hear it over anything else that has even the least bit of ambient noise. 10 minutes on the clock, 89% state of charge. Watt hour, 0.05 kilowatt hours. Let's see if the inverter is getting hot. Nice and cool. That's also because the airflow from the floor fan is actually cooling the power station. It would still be much lower temperature even if it were to get hot. 15 minutes on the clock, 84% remaining charge. Watt hour, 0.073. Alright, 75% remaining charge in about 19 minutes. 50% remaining charge at about 26 minutes. Watt hour, 0.129. A watt hour, 0.147 after 30 minutes with 38% remaining, 25% remaining charge at 36 minutes. 20% remaining charge, 37 minutes. So it looks like the bottom 20% efficiency is probably coming down much quicker. So you're seeing a decrease in efficiency at this, starting from 20%, 0.179 kilowatt hours of energy use, 37 minutes, 17% remaining charge. It's going down quick now. 13% remaining charge, 38 minutes. When you're down to under 15% remaining charge, the voltage output of the inverter does decrease. 275 watts, yeah. So there is a performance decrease. Output wattage is now sagging a little bit at 273 watts. 267 watts, 104 for voltage. Just right at 40 minutes of runtime, kilowatt hour, 0.191. 5% remaining charge. 41 minutes runtime, 0.197 kilowatt hours. 3% remaining charge, 262 on the display, 248 on the power meter, 2% state of charge, 243 watts remaining, 42 minutes remaining runtime, 0.20 kilowatt hours. And we're just about to shut down. The screen went off, we'll let that, I think that's better because if the display is off, it's trying to save power. We're trying to maximize the runtime, so I'm not going to switch it back on. We'll just let it keep going until it powers down, and then we'll call it there. Oh, it's a little hard to see on the screen because the backlight is off on the power meter, but the runtime in minutes is 42 minutes, 49 seconds, 0.203 kilowatt hours out of 0.26. Let's see if we can turn on the power station. Yes, it can. The fan is on right now because I'm sure the inverter is very hot inside. Feel some warm air coming out on this corner. Can we switch on the inverter? No, we cannot. E08. So it gives us an error. All right. The output wattage does start to drop off after the last remaining 20%. But again, that is due to having a really small battery. The smaller batteries in these micro power stations, they probably have a decrease in performance when they're very, very close to the bottom of a full 100% discharge. Or I am going to charge this thing back up a few more times because I have to do this again with the DC output. I want to try the AC inverter again, but at a lower wattage. So 203, divide that by 0.260. 78% efficiency with a 295 watt load. That is a lot lower than what I expected. The power station does stay warm for quite a while even after discharging. If you allow it to stay on, it will continue to just run the fans to try to cool itself. But if you turn it off completely, it will the fans will not run. We're gonna try it again and see if we get a better result this time. I want to see something a little higher than 78% usable capacity because 260 watt hours, you want to maximize every watt hour that you could use, right? You don't want to be using, I think 78% usable capacity for something this small is unacceptable. So I want this to do well. I want this to do better. I do want to try it again with the exact same loads. It's at a full charge and we're going to start right away. This floor fan is not cooling the inverter this time because so there's no airflow to the inverter. 5 minutes, 92% remaining charge. Kilowatt hours 0.023. Alright, I'm gonna move the floor fan out of the way so that way you can hear the sound of the inverter fans running. Okay, I'm gonna put the fan on the extension cord. So 17 minutes in, 80% remaining charge, 75% remaining charge. And we used 0.092 kilowatt hours. 50% remaining charge at 27 minutes with 295 watts of load. Energy used was 0.131 kilowatt hours. 36%, 32 minutes. Let's check the load. 296 watts. The entire power bank on the top side, it's all warm. Same on the underside as well. It's actually warmer on the underside than it is on the top. 25% remaining charge at 36 minutes. Check watt hour, 0.175. 10% remaining charge at 40 minutes, 0.192 kilowatt hours. 0.210 kilowatt hours. The first test we did was 0.203. 4% remaining charge. Let's check the wattage. 246 watts. 0.204. A little bit better than the first test we did. 99 volts. 2% remaining charge. At 1% remaining charge. 239, so it's going down. We'll finish up on the kilowatt hour screen here. 0.206. 43 minutes. And it shut off. So 43 minutes. That was 0.206 kilowatt hours. The fan is off right now. It is toasty. Very warm. I'm going to check temperature in just a moment. 0.206 kilowatt hours used divided by 0.260 for usable capacity of 79%. At the wattage of 295 and it dipped down to 245 at the very end of the discharge curve. I'm going to check temperatures real quick. Again, I'm using a non-contact laser thermometer. Over here on this corner it is 28. On this corner it is 30 Celsius. This corner over here it is 43 Celsius. This corner it is 26. Right in the middle on the Egretech logo, 34 Celsius. Let's have a look at the back side while this thing is still hot. Let's scan the LED light bar area. So right here on the exhaust fan, 32 Celsius, right in the middle. It's about 32 to 36. On this one here, 36. The underside, 47 on here, 35 over here, 30 Celsius over here, 33 over here. In the middle, 38. Around the sticker and the logo area, it is the hot spot at around 50 right there on the QR code. 50 Celsius. Over here, it's also 49, pretty hot. 29 over here, 33 over here, 36 to 38 over here, 36 over here. So where the unit is actually heavier, it is on this side. Okay. So this side where the handlebar straps go, or your shoulder strap, the battery's on this side, the inverter is on this side. It makes sense that the area that's the hottest is the inverter. So it is heavier on this side than it is over here. So carrying this power station with the strap like here, between the two loops, it is top heavy. Okay, this is another bit of information. So right now I want to charge the power station right after we finish the second capacity test, where we got a result of 79% usable capacity. Well, the power station is still very hot, and it will not let me charge. I have my USB-C 65 watt charger, and I'm going to connect it to the bidirectional USB-C port. So it is showing error E03, no charge until it cools down. Okay, so I'm going to do another round of the AC capacity test again. This time we're going to run 250 watts of load instead of the previous two, that was 295. This one's going to be convection oven and the light bulb for a total of 250 watts. 100% full charge. Now let's add the heater. 250 watts. The voltage comes down to 108. 78% usable capacity was the first result, and 79% usable capacity was our second result. Both of those were at 295 watts of load. So I expect this one to go a bit longer, probably closer to an hour, maybe 55 minutes. 10 minutes on the clock, 248 watts, 94% remaining charge, 0.41 kilowatts. 15 minutes on the clock, 0.062 kilowatt. 20 minutes runtime, 0.082 kilowatt hours. 30 minutes on the clock, kilowatt hours, 0.125. 49% remaining charge, 35 minutes on the clock, 0.143 kilowatt hours. 40 minutes, 0.163 kilowatt hours. 10% remaining charge, 0.197 kilowatt hours. 48 minutes. I'm going to switch back to wattage because this is where we start seeing a performance decrease in the battery output wattage. We're down to 236 watts. Even with a 250 watt start, we do see decrease in output the last 10 to 15% or so. 50 minutes on the clock, 226 watts out, 0.204 kilowatt hour. At this kilowatt hour number was basically where in the previous two capacity test results at 295 watts of load, this is where the power station would shut down. But we still have 6% remaining charge. Voltage is 103. So it's pretty darn close. As far as efficiency is concerned, it doesn't seem to be that big of an improvement with a 250 watt load versus a 295 watt load out of this 214. Again, there's an output decrease. 51 minutes on the clock, 100 volts, 210 watts. 0% remaining charge, 208 watts, 207 watts, 52 minutes, 99 for voltage. We're seeing 0.212, and it stopped. A 250 watt load, 52 minutes, 27 seconds. The energy used was 0.212 kilowatt hours, 81% efficiency. I said it was 55 minutes. It came out to 52 minutes, 27 seconds. So I was pretty darn close. Capacity test again. This time we're going to do a 200 watt load. It will be just the convection oven. Again, it is a 100% full state of charge. Reset power meter. 193. The closest I can get to being exactly at 200. Let's see if a 200 watt load will give us better efficiency. 10 minutes, 96% remaining charge, 0.032 kilowatt hours. 50% remaining charge at 45 minutes, and we used 0.146 kilowatt hours. Current load 192 watts. It's just a tiny bit warm on this back left corner, and on this corner right here it's very cool. It's basically the same as ambient temperature. It's barely warm at all. 20% remaining charge, 0.188 kilowatt hours, almost 59 minutes, 191 watts. 10% remaining charge, 189 watts of load, 1 hour, 2 minutes, 0.201 kilowatt hours. 5% remaining charge, 1 hour, 5 minutes, 0.210 kilowatt hours, 178 watts. We're about to shut down. 1%, 0%, 0.214 kilowatt hours, 1 hour, 7 minutes, 215, 168 watts. And we're done. The backlight's off, but it is 1 hour, 7 minutes, 0.216 kilowatt hours. Not much of an improvement still. That gives us 216 watt hours out of 260. Usable capacity of 83% at 200 watt load. One last final AC capacity test before I'm calling it for the AC inverter. It's not likely it's going to do any better for this one. This runs 140 watts on an AC wall outlet. We're going to plug this in and then we'll see what it runs on the power station. 127 watts. Exactly 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 minute, 0.13 kilowatt hours. And the load is still at 129 watts. 15% remaining charge, 1 hour, 29 minutes. Current wattage is 131. 10% remaining charge, 0.198 kilowatt hours, 1 hour, 32 minutes. 5% remaining charge, 1 hour, 37 minutes. Wattage dropped a bit down to 120. 1%, 0.212 kilowatt hours, 1 hour, 39 minutes. 115 watts. 0%, 0.214, 1 hour, 40 minutes. 112 watts. And we're done. 0.215 kilowatt hours, 1 hour, 40 minutes for a 130 watt load. 82% efficiency. I'm going to call it here with the AC capacity testing. I'm not going to use a 26 watt load on a 260 watt hour battery and wait 10 hours. I'll be finishing up with a 100 watt hour USB output capacity test, bidirectional C port. We're now doing the bidirectional USB-C DC capacity test. 100% full charge. I will be using a proprietary connector that takes 100 watt USB-C and switches it to DC barrel jack 5521 through a proprietary connector. So the reason why I'm doing that is because the DC barrel jack connector on the load tester here, this connection is very loose, so I decided I was going to use a different, make a separate extend wires to a terminal block and go to 5521, a female barrel plug here, and then use this connection, which is better than putting this cable directly in here. Alright, everything is 0. So I'm going to plug this into the bidirectional C port, and we get 19 volts. Okay, we are exactly 100 watts of load, 19.2 volts, 5.2 amps. It's bouncing around between 99.6 and 100. On the display here of the power station, 100 watts. And we'll let this run for the next about 2.5 hours. I'm having some camera difficulties. For some reason, I'm not able to capture the color of the LCD display here. It's just, part of it is this fan has those blue LEDs. It creates reflection. And I want to put the the display in the video. So trying to capture both is just challenging. Alright, so I found a better camera position to record both the screen on the power station and the screen on the load tester. And then for whatever reason, the power station it stopped outputting power, so it just dropped the voltage completely down to 0. For the first 6 minutes there, right before the power station shut down, I think doing a load right at 100 watts, it was a little bit too much. It is working again. We're gonna pick up right from where we left off. It was 0.54 amp hours when it shut off, and now it's 0.55, and the time there was 6 minutes 25 seconds when it shut off. Now it's just 6:26, so hardly any different. I'll try keeping it at around 95 watts this time. It's possible the full 100 watts. The power station doesn't like it. So exactly 19.2 volts, 5 amps, it's 96 watts. Two hours of runtime, 192 watt hours, and we have 15% remaining charge. Still at 96 watts of load. Two hours, 12 minutes, 213 watt hours. Now we're down to 0%. Looks like we're finished. 2 hours, 14 minutes, 215.96 watt hours, 11.23 amp hours. 215 out of 260, 82% usable capacity. So what is my final verdict on the Egretech portable power station? Almost perfect. It did quite good for the most part. It's not the absolute best, but it's not the absolute worst either. My biggest fault would be there is no dual charging or dual DC input. The max charge rate for this is 100 watts of DC input. You can see from my capacity testing on the AC inverter, the AC inverter is pretty darn strong. It's able to handle 300 watts for the whole discharge without overheating or shutting down. It did decrease the output wattage in the last 20%. That's probably due to just the battery getting weaker when it's at such a low charge. It's not the fault of the inverter. Inverter's efficiency is pretty average. I don't think you're going to get better efficiency with loads that are 25 watts or 10 watts at that very low amount. You're likely to see 83% anyway. DC output ports, the USB A's, the output, the 20 watt USB-C port, those work fine. There's no issues with those. I would like to see faster charging, because if you can take 300 watts out of this battery and you can only put 100 watts back in, that's a 3-to-1 ratio, right? So if you're using this primarily for the AC output and you're loading it up to 300 watts, you're going to spend a lot more time charging than actually using the power station. So it's either the output wattage of the inverter be more limited to match the 100 watt input. So let's say a 2-to-1 ratio instead, where you have a 200 watt AC output and a 100 watt input, right? Or the other option is to add a second dual charging option for another 65 watt input for a total of 165 watts in. For this size of power station, to have 260 watt hours, that is pretty darn impressive as far as capacity and size ratio. You're not going to see anything else that is around 260 watt hour battery of this size. You know, part of the reason why this power station can get that kind of power density or energy capacity and packaging size and weight ratio is because the chemistry in this one is cobalt based. Okay, so it's some sort of cobalt based chemistry, NMC, NCA. It's not lithium iron phosphate. If you are looking for a lithium iron phosphate, this does not have that. And if it did have lithium iron phosphate, it likely will not be 260 watt hour capacity. If this were to just be a power bank just for your smartphone, it would be too large and bulky because this is something that's 5 pounds. You don't have to use a 5 pound power station to recharge your phone. You could get something that's just 20,000 milliamp hour, much smaller and much more lightweight to just charge just the phone. If you want it for a laptop, that would be probably the most convincing reason why I would say this would be useful for, because the AC output runtime for loads that are greater than 130 watts, you're looking at somewhere between 45 minutes to 1 hour 20 minutes. Charge time isn't the quickest either. This did take about 2 hours 40 minutes to get to 99%, and that last final 1%, it took another 20 or 25 minutes and finally finished at about 3 hours and 15 minutes to completely fully charge. Another way to look at this is if you are planning on running AC loads for a longer extended period of time, let's say more than 10 hours, and your loads are greater than 50 watts, you're going to need a bigger power station anyway. You'll need something with a bigger battery to give you enough energy for that amount of runtime. If your AC loads are 25 watts, right, with a 260 watt hour battery, you can run almost 10 hours. Way to take the power from DC input and transfer that over directly to the AC output of the inverter. So if you're thinking about pass-through charging or UPS functionality, this power station cannot do that. Any DC input will charge the battery automatically if it is not at 100%, and any load on the AC inverter will discharge the battery. So if you're using it like that, you will also cycle the battery as well. No pass-through charging. There's no function like that here. Functionally, it did everything it was supposed to do. It passed all the testing. I paid $136 for this thing on Amazon. That's after a bunch of discounts. That 136 is the final price. Cost per watt hour, this is pretty darn competitive as well. 52 cents per watt hour. Personally for me, this really isn't what I'm looking for, but also because I feel the charging speed is rather slow on this compared to being able to use 300 watts of output from the AC inverter. I would like to see, ideally, 100% full charge in 2 hours. What would be even better is if it had 0 to 80% in 1 hour.